Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and this is going to be a reading vlog that is mostly about my vacation to Utah to see the Mighty Five, which are the big five national parks that are in Utah, as well as a few other things, and I'll show you lots of footage of that, but there will be a few book reviews intermixed, so I hope you enjoy. So this is a rough map of the area that we road tripped in, and I'm going to use something like this to explain a lot of our movements to you, except when we stay in Utah for a while, I'll get rid of this part and just show you the Utah, Arizona sort of area. But we started over here in the Tri-Cities because that's where I live. It's in eastern Washington. The mountains are kind of over here, so this side is a desert, this side is where Seattle is, and where all the rain is. So we went down south into Oregon, and then we started going towards Idaho. There's a big highway that goes this way, and somewhere right about here we stopped and we had lunch, and it was Arby's. It was at a Love's gas station truck stop type thing, and I really like Love's stations because they tend to be really clean and really nice, and you can use the bathroom there without it being a horrible little gas station bathroom. And then we went on, and I think the road goes something like this. We stopped in Boise, and there will be some pictures from there because we had some extra time, so we stopped at a raptor sanctuary place that is actually the headquarters for raptor conservation organization that works all over the world, and they had some lovely raptors for us to look at. They have some in like kind of medium-sized houses that you can look in. They have a lot more who are in less public areas, and a lot of them, they are actually able to fly. They just can't be released because for various reasons they wouldn't survive in the wild. But they do have a program that is a breeding program for condors, and so those ones they do release into the wild when they grow up. So that's really cool. And they actually released them down around the Grand Canyon towards where we were going. So after we saw that, we went on down to Twin Falls, where we stayed the night. This was basically the last big city that was about halfway between where we started and where we were going. So that's why we stopped there. And the time zones were very confusing around this time because some of these states do daylight savings time. We do it, and some of them don't. And then somewhere we crossed into mountain time, and then we went back into another state that did do it or didn't do it, and it was all very confusing back and forth every day for a while. Second day of our trip, we headed down into Nevada because we wanted to go two different ways. We could have gone this way, but we wanted to go two different ways on our out and back, and we also kind of wanted to go to this little town called Ely, which you might know is my last name. There are a few Elys around the world. The original one is in England, but there are a few in the US as well. We had lunch in Ely. Ely is kind of a sprawling town, but it's kind of dying also. There are a lot of closed storefronts, so unfortunately some of the restaurants we wanted to check out were closed. So we ended up having a kind of mediocre lunch at a little lounge bar restaurant thing that had a whole lot of taxidermied animals on the wall. So then we kept heading down to the place where we were going to begin properly our vacation, which was called Mesquite. And at Mesquite they have, as we were traveling through Nevada, we started seeing palm trees and cactuses, which was really cool because I've never seen those in person before. My parents have, because they've traveled a bit more, but I've never seen those before, so that was cool to see. The hotel was terrible because it was a casino hotel, and I thought it was cheap because it was a casino hotel and they wanted to encourage people to come gamble, and that might have been part of the reason it was cheap, but it was also cheap because there was no mini fridge, no microwave, no fan in the bathroom, and was generally tiny and unpleasant. So, not gonna stay there again, but that was day 2. That was about 6 to 7 hours of traveling each day. But we had realized that despite the gas that would take, it was cheaper than combining a plane ticket to Vegas with a car rental, because a car rental is actually going to cost around $3,000 for 2 weeks, which was just a little bit too much. So next day we went up to Zion, which is kind of shaped like that. It's a national park. We went to this top part, as there are 2 or 3 different entrances to the park, and we hiked around up there. That was very pretty. That was our first sight of red rocks. Then we came back down to a place called Hurricane, and that was kind of fun. My dad watches a YouTuber who is based in Hurricane, and he went to see his little shop where he has various t-shirts for sale, and my dad had a lot of fun seeing that and taking pictures with the wrecker that this person hauls around. He's called Matt's Off-Road Recovery. So that was fun for my dad. So that was really nice, and we had lunch, and then we went up to the south entrance of Zion. And I was feeling really poorly. The sun had been very bright the last 2 days while we drove down, and I was in the front seat because I get less car sick that way, and because the back support is better. And so there was this big windshield full of sun for 2 days, and then for part of this last day as well. And I had a bad headache and was not feeling well, so we didn't hike very much that day, but we did check out the museum, which was very nice, and which had some very cool Native American artifacts. Then we came back out down here, and we went over here to Apple Valley, which is where I had booked to stay the night. We found a place for about $100 a night, which was much cheaper than anywhere else, except of course for the little Mesquite Hotel. That was very nice, and it was very dark there, so we went out to see the stars, and I was actually able to see the Milky Way, which was lovely because I've never seen that in person before. My camera wasn't able to pick it up because I don't know how to use the low light settings on my camera, but it was very cool. And then the next day we actually went up to Bryce Canyon, which is kind of shaped like that, and we went in there, and it was beautiful, and there were lots of hoodoos. That's Bryce's special thing, and the rocks were all this beautiful pinky orange sort of color, and I really enjoyed that. My mom and dad hiked Navajo Loop. I chickened out because I'm scared of heights, and there were a lot of edges there, and also it's 500 feet of descent into the canyon, and that's a bit much for me, but they had a really great time, and you'll see all these beautiful photos they were able to take, and yeah, it was really lovely. So I would recommend that hike if you are up to that kind of climbing and descent. I would also recommend, this is the way my parents did it, we went down the Navajo side and back up the Wall Street side, because the Wall Street side is a lot less steep, so it makes for a much more pleasant ascent than if you came back up the very steep Navajo side. After that, we went for another little hike in Bryce called the Mossy Cave hike, which was a lot smaller and more handleable for me, but unfortunately in the fall, Mossy Cave is not that cool, as there's hardly any moss, but there also isn't cold enough for those giant icicles to form, so it's a little bit underwhelming to look at. So I would recommend going to Mossy Cave either in the summer or in the deep winter to see the nicest looks. And also because it was fall and it was the dry sort of season, the waterfall that's usually present along the way wasn't present either. But I did really love Bryce Canyon. I think it ended up being my favorite, and it was also my dad's favorite, and my mom really enjoyed it as well because of how beautiful those rocks were. We came back and dipped into Zion to see the giant tunnel that's there. That was pretty cool. And then we came back, had dinner, and went to sleep in Apple Valley. Next day we went back, and there's no road directly like this from Apple Valley to Zion. No. You have to go almost all the way back to Hurricane, and then you can go back in. So it is an hour away on the road, though it's like 12 minutes it's like 12 miles as the crow flies. But yeah, we went back in, and we did about 5 miles of hiking that day. We did the Emerald Pools hike, which the Emerald Pools aren't that special if you just go to the middle ones. We didn't see the upper or lower ones because once again I was tired, but we did hear that the upper ones were more impressive, so you might want to check those out if you go there. And then the second part of the hike, that was 3 miles out and back, and then we went on a 2-mile hike up to the Narrows, where a lot of people will rent waders and go into the water there, but for various reasons, including the fact that there were lots of warnings about how germy the water is and that you shouldn't touch your mouth or anything after touching the water without washing your hands, and I am a germaphobe and my parents are sensitive to cold and the water was very cold, we decided not to actually hike in the Narrows, which fortunately we hadn't rented equipment. We were just going to go in our regular shoes and just get wet and then replace them when we got out of the water. We decided not to do that, and it would have been adding on to an already big day of hiking as well. So that was our last day at Zion, and I would say that overall, having been to all these other national parks, it's not like deserving of the hype in that there are almost twice as many visitors to Zion as there are to Bryce. But I would say Bryce is just as good as Zion. If you don't like crowds, you might schedule less time at Zion and more time at Bryce or Arches or one of the others. Hello there, it's my first on the ground check-in. We finished our audiobook of Code Talker yesterday by Chester Nez, and I'll find the other author's name and put it up, but it was really excellent. The Code Talkers, the Navajo Code Talkers, were a group of Navajo who worked in World War II to create a code based on the Navajo language and it required a Navajo person on each end of the line to put the English into code orally, just in their brain, not write it out, say it over the radio, and then the person on the other end would decode it the same way. They worked in pairs so that because they had crank radios, so one person would crank and the other would code talk, and they were on the front lines because they were repeating and sending information from the front lines to the slightly behind lines where the artillery was, so they would know where to shoot a lot of the time. And so one would crank and the other would speak, and then they would trade off because it was quite intense to be doing all that mental work of translating all the time. It was really interesting, and this is an entire memoir, so it also goes into Chester Nez's life before that and after that. But there is a long focus. I would say 40% or so of the book takes place during the war. But yeah, there's quite a lot of stuff about his childhood, boarding school. He did not have as bad an experience as a lot of people had at boarding school, but still traumatizing. So that stuff is included, so be aware. There was also some other horrible stuff that he witnessed as a kid. But there's also a lot of beautiful stuff about working as a shepherd. But yeah, it was really excellently done. Absolutely loved it. 5 stars. And my whole family was interested. I selected it because I knew that both my dad and my mom and me would all like it, which is takes a specific type of book for that to be the case. Day 6, we headed out of Apple Valley and went down into Arizona to a place called Page. So it is Tuesday the 29th, and we are staying in Page last night and tonight, and today we're going to go see that. That is Monument Valley, so hopefully there will be more photos of that to come, and we're also going to go see the Navajo National Monument, which visiting those two things in the same day that both have the word monument in them is a little confusing and caused much confusion for my poor mom. But yeah, we're gonna go see both of those, possibly Rainbow Bridge if we have enough energy at the end of the day. There's a little bit of traveling to do the day on kind of back roads, so it might take a long time. But yeah, last night we decided not to go see any of the slot canyons around here because they're very expensive, like $80 to $100 per person. And they're guided tours, which you can understand because like sending a bunch of people unsupervised into slot canyons, like it'd be very easy for them to do damage in there. But a little too expensive and also too crowded for us. So we might see a slot canyon up in Torrey, but possibly not. It depends on if that one is also expensive, but I think it'll be cheaper. So there may be slot canyon footage eventually when we get to Torrey. But so yesterday we had more free time than we expected. We did go on a little hike to Horseshoe Bend, which there are lots of horseshoe bends, but this particular one is right outside of Page, and it's something you can hike to, and you just have to pay $10 for parking if you're in a car. So that was a lot more affordable, and that's a 1.5 mile hike round trip, so that was very nice because we were all pretty tired. Yesterday was we ended up hiking for 5 miles total, so that was a lot. So it was nice to have a smaller day yesterday, and so I had some time to read yesterday. I read about 50 to 60 pages of Rise of the Jumbies, which I'm enjoying more now. The first 50 pages was a lot of setup, but now we're really getting into action of it and more world building, which is really interesting. So I'm excited for the rest of it, and I'm really enjoying my time so far. This is by Tracy Baptiste, and this is the second book in the Jumbies series. I read the first one a few years ago and really enjoyed it. Really well done. So looking forward to the rest of it. Because the next day we headed out and went to the Navajo National Monument, and it was very nice. It was a site where there were some old pueblos, quite a village of pueblos, inside a sort of arched recess of the rock. And there's a nice little museum there, itty-bitty sort of displays that you find at the visitor center, and they also had some outdoor displays where they showed what a hogan looked like and what a sweat lodge, I think, looked like, and we have learned about both of those from Code Talker, the book. So that was really cool, and it was cool just to be on the Navajo reservation after reading the book by Chester Nez. And then we headed on up to Monument Valley, which is the place with the rocks that are extremely distinctive. Yeah, very cool monuments, which are just kind of buttes that kind of stick up in the middle of nowhere. Very interesting. And then we drove on back, and so that was quite a bit of driving that night. And then on day 8, I believe, we headed back out from Page, up past Bryce, on up past and somewhat through the Escalante National Monument, which is a big sort of area, and up onto Torrey. And I'm pretty sure that's when I ended the first week's vlog. So it's day 8, and I'm in Torrey now. We meant to take another hike in Escalante, but we just took a very short trip in to see an arch, and then went back out because we realized that to get to the slot canyons in Escalante, you have to drive on a dirt road for about an hour and a half, and we didn't want to add 3 hours of driving time onto our day, so which already had 4 hours of driving time in it. So but in the car I did have time to finish Rise of the Jumbies by Tracy Baptiste. I really enjoyed it. It's a middle grade, and it is the second in the Jumbies series, and I think there's going to be another one based on some things that were said at the end. It has mermaids in it and focuses a lot on sea and water, ocean Jumbies, as opposed to forest ones, which were in the first book. So we get to find out more about the world building and lore and stuff going on. And we get to team back up with our troop of kids from the first book, which is a lot of fun. And yeah, I really liked the sort of different take that this one had. The first one was a lot more creepy. This one was much less so. 5 stars. And then we also listened to The Women with Silver Wings, which is a nonfiction about the WASPs, which were women who flew planes back and forth during World War II. They weren't allowed to go on the battlefront, but they like ferried planes from the factories to the bases and things like that. And it's all about how they came to be, what they did while they were active, and then what happened after, how it dissolved and what happened after, and how they fought for recognition. And it was very interesting. And they were also talked about them as a group, but also specifically about 5 or 6 individuals who there was lots of access information about them because they wrote journals a lot or wrote letters a lot, and the author had access to those. But the author also did a lot of interviews with people because she was studying for a doctorate in some kind of history, and so she was able to do all that as part of her studies. And so for years and years she did research to bring this book together. So very interesting stuff. I thought it was told really well. She also talked about how Black, Indigenous, and other people of color were involved. So Black women were totally not allowed in at all. At least one applied and was refused based on the fact that she was Black. And a lot of people didn't apply in the first place because they knew. And then I think there was one Native woman who was able to be one of the WASPs. One Chinese American woman. It was very interesting and well done, so I give it 4.5 stars. And since it's day 8, I'm going to end this week's vlog, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!